Hello and welcome to the SEGA Nerdcast, episode 92. I'm Chris, the editor of SEGA Nerds, and joining me today is my good buddy Andrew Pine. How's it going, Andrew?
I'm pretty good, my friend. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So we just wrapped up recording a couple episodes of our new YouTube series called the SEGA Newscast. And what we do in the SEGA Newscast is we basically talk about a different piece of Sega news or a topic, like a Sega topic, uh, each week. We'll probably be posting a couple, maybe 2 or 3 videos a week of that on our YouTube channel. So that's going to affect our podcast, the Nerdcast, a little bit because typically we talked about a lot of the news during the podcast. So we're kind of figuring out some things that we want to do with the Nerdcast and kind of the future of that. So we're having some internal, discussions behind the scenes a little bit on what we want to do with the Nerdcast. But we have some good ideas, I think, that you guys will like with that. So for this episode of the Nerdcast, Andrew and I just want to kind of have a chat about what we've been up to because it's been a while since we've both been on one of these together. And just kind of have a laid-back discussion just about different stuff. Some of it relating to Sega, some of it not, things like that. So Andrew, what have you been up to, man? Like, what have you been doing? We've been talking on the Facebooks a bit. What have you been up to over there in that crazy land of yours, living upside down in Australia?
Kangaroo Land, where we ride down the street in pouches. Um, I've been pretty good. I've been a little sick, so I've been kind of working on that. But in between that, I've just been working. I've been writing my next book because I've finished one. I'm on to the next one. There's no stopping me. Um,
What's your book about?
it's a speculative fiction novel about an alien creature that crash lands to Earth. I don't want to give too much away, but all is not as it seems with this creature. Um, and
He
basically, it
identifies
ends
himself.
up.
He identifies with a human, so he's an alien. But because in this fictional landscape of yours, like our society's evolved to the point that we're so politically correct that an alien can come from like thousands of light years away, and that because he identifies himself as a human, we then have to accept him and give him full rights as a human, because
Yeah, we
doing
have to
anything
learn
else
his
would be
pronouns.
discriminatory.
We have to learn his pronouns.
um, but you this is it based is it like a sequel to your first book? I didn't know you wrote a book, man.
Yeah, no, oh no, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have told you this, but yeah, I've finished one book, and the next one that I'm working on now is a sequel to it. It's a planned trilogy. So instead of putting jamming all this stuff into one book, I was like, okay, I've got tons of ideas, so it'll be book two, book three, and then I'm planning some short stories as well. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff with that.
Hmm.
I'll have to give you a copy. You can be one of the first people.
I would actually love that. I love, man. Graham has been writing a book as well, and he's got quite a bit. His is more like set in a fantasy like medieval style setting with
Yeah.
like all sorts of like fantastical monsters like skeletons and things like that. Really good stuff. And I've always wanted to write a book, and I think a lot of it would be based on fiction because that's kind of what I like to read.
Mm.
But for whatever reason, the idea of writing a book terrifies the shit out of me. Like I feel like I'm not a good enough writer to be able to take it on, and I think maybe I'm afraid of doing it and failing at it, I think. And so I have
Yeah.
this like intense fear of doing it, if that makes any sense.
Do you want some advice?
Yeah.
Okay. Those feelings are mostly irrational because I had them as well. And I was like, I'm never going to write this thing. I'm never going to get it done. And I sat down every day and I'm like, just write 1,000 words. Just write 1,000 words every day. because most books average, especially for a new author that's unpublished, average around 35,000 words. So if you can knock out 1,000 words a day, you're well on your way to getting a finished book. And those feelings about like, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? I guess the only way to find out is to finish, and then later on see what happens. And then if you get bad reception for it, take it as feedback and try again.
Hmm. I really need to do it. I think once I have some time where I can actually sit down and really focus on. That's another thing too, is it's tough for me just to be able to get the time. And I try to explain this to my wife, and I don't think she fully understands, um, because there's times where I'm writing, just say an article on the website, and I'm writing it to be able to like get into the mind frame of writing. I have to tune like everything out, and I get so in that when I get into that zone, I get so focused, and I'm writing it, and there's times where my kids will come up and start talking to me, and I don't realize they're saying anything to me because I'm so focused on what I'm writing. And my wife
Yeah.
will, she'll have to either call my name a couple times or come over to me and like poke me and be like, hey, like Isabel's trying to say something to you. And it kind of brings me out of this kind of mind frame, this tunnel vision that I was in. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to ignore her or anything like this, but I
Mm.
can't, I didn't hear her, and so when there's a lot of distraction, it's hard for me to be able to write and get in the zone that I need to be able to write like I want to be able to. And I see some of the writing that even if it's just like stuff on the website, the difference in quality between if like I'm having to write, I'm in a rush, like say,
Mm.
we have to write a quick news story or something like that before we're going to go out to dinner or something like that, or the kids are kind of running and kind of running around making noise and stuff. I notice a remarkable difference in the quality between something like that and something if I'm like home alone, the house is quiet, I can sit and write. And so a lot of times what I would do when I was writing for Airman Magazine is because the same stuff would happen to me at work. I would be trying to write a story and people would be coming up to me asking me to edit something, to look at something,
Mm.
and I couldn't focus. So I would then just be like, you know what, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to write from there. And I've found like it was such a big difference. And
Yeah.
so if I can get some time to just alone, like right now, in the middle of the day, I would think that would be make a world of difference. But yeah, that's good advice. I just need to come up with an idea. But man, when I was a kid, I used to write so much. My dad, bless his soul, like he had this idea that you could buy any computer and you could just upgrade it, and that's all you would need. Like you wouldn't have to buy a new computer. You could buy an old computer and upgrade it, and it'd be fine. So he bought this like piece of crap old Apple computer from one of his buddies at work, like probably in 1995 or 93. It was a while back, but even then, when he bought that, it was a very outdated computer, and I don't remember what model it was. It was old, and it
It was
didn't even have a
probably an
C.
Apple too.
It might have been an Apple II. I have to go
Mm.
and look at some pictures, but it didn't have a CD-ROM drive, and I wanted it primarily to play games because I would in the magazines I was reading in EGM and Game Fan and things like that. I would always read about these PC games, and I really wanted to get into PC gaming. But unfortunately, we didn't have a PC. We had a Mac, which is still kind of crappy as far as games goes.
Yeah.
And so the only game we could get was Where in the World's Carmen Sandiego, and I would play I would play Where in the World's Carmen Sandiego so much. I think it was a Broderbund published game,
Yeah, it was.
and that was the only game I could get. I couldn't find anything else. And then it would have some of the like I think Solitaire might have been on there as well. And so there wasn't a lot of games, and I had a computer in my room. So what I would do was I would just sit and write about stuff because I was a big reader when I was a kid. I would read all sorts of stuff,
Mm.
from like Moby Dick to Tale of Two Cities. I loved reading anything, and so I would just start writing it, and a lot of it was like based on like monsters and a lot of the stuff the kids are into. And so I need to get back into that zone of just being able to writing and things like that. But um, I was always pissed at my dad because I tried to explain to him, like, look, you can't, it doesn't work that way. This is an old computer. We've got to buy a new one. And he's like, no, you don't. You can just, you got a computer.
Just
Why
give
are
us
you
more
asking for more?
RAM.
He'd always like turn it around and make me the bad guy because I didn't like this computer that he bought. And I'm trying to explain to him, like, we can't really do anything on it. We want a computer that we can do stuff on. And
Yeah.
I remember, you remember what your first introduction to the internet was? Like the very first time you got on the internet? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I was 98,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I had very little software at the time because we just gotten the computer and we got a dial-up phone plan with it, and so we were able to access the internet. And the first thing that I could think of doing was going to Cartoon Network's website because I was 9 at the time, and I can remember going to Cartoon Network's website and just playing games on this thing and just being like amazed that I had access to all of these games just just in one place, like from my lounge room. It was crazy. How about you?
I remember it was at my best friend Cody Putman's house, and it was probably, man, I graduated in 2000, which sounds so far away, so long ago. It
Mm.
had to have been in like 96 or 97 then, and it was crazy because at that point in time, I don't even remember if it was AOL. Was it Netscape? Was that like the other big?
Netscape was a browser. There was CompuServe.
I think it was
Uh,
CompuServe. Yeah, I think it
yeah,
was CompuServe.
that was a big one.
But it was so, I mean, it was so unintuitive. I couldn't figure out even how to connect. You had to go into all these like menus and do all this stuff and like type all this
Yeah.
stuff in. And back then, this is when it was also pay per minute. So
Oh,
it got really expensive. But I went there, and what we would end up doing is we just go to these chat rooms, and uh, we were basically trolls before that even became a thing. We were just like
before it
these
was a
like,
thing.
yeah, we were like 15, 16 years old kids, and we'd go to these chat rooms where there were people like role playing like they were vampires, and we would just talk shit to them. Like we just like make fun of them, and just tell them they're stupid for being vampires, and they weren't really vampires, and all this stuff. It was really funny, but it was this new thing. It was so cool. I was hooked. I couldn't take myself away. And then of course we downloaded a bunch of porn, and that was another thing we did.
What
And
else do 15-year-old boys do on the internet?
I remember it was so funny because we would even just trying to look at a picture of a girl's boobs. I mean, you would click the picture to download it, and it would be like line by line, slowly downloading. Whereas today, you could get on your phone or something, and it comes up right away. Kids of today will never uh, know our pain of what it was like
They'll
downloading.
never understand what it was like to have dial-up.
Oh, it was the worst. And I remember when I first got my computer, my first computer. It was after I went to the Air Force after I graduated basic training, and my brother-in-law at the time gave me he worked for like IT or something for Radio Shack, and so
Oh,
he was kind of a computer geek kind of guy, and he knew a lot about it. So he gave me this old computer he had. It was a PC, thankfully, and I moved to Montana, and I was like 18 at the time. I was super young, right out of high school. So I go to Montana. I don't really know anyone there, and I got it on the internet, and I started just searching for stuff, like stuff that I was into, and I was really into the Dreamcast at the
yeah.
time, because it was right around in 2000, late 2000. So the Dreamcast was like in full, full bore then, And so
Mm.
I somehow stumbled upon the Sega forums on the old Sega.com forums back in the day. I don't even think they have. Yeah, they still have those up there on the Sega side. I think they still do.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where I first met Graham there, and it was really
Oh.
cool. I just started talking to people. It was a fun place, but it was a way that I could kind of connect with people that I wasn't able to do at work, or I didn't really know anyone. I didn't really have a lot of friends, so I made my friends there, and that was kind of the first time where I was really kind of like hooked to the internet, and I was on it like all the time. My wife hated it. My wife at the time. I've since upgraded to a new wife, and but it was great. Like I just remember, and then I got this idea of like, man, I'm in this job where I write, and I was like really excited about writing, and I was like, it'd be cool to like make a Sega fan site where we could just write about Sega stuff. And I made a post on the forums. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about making a Sega fan site about the Dreamcast. Does anyone want to help me out? And no one really was interested except Graham. And he's like, yeah, I'll help you out. And at the time, I was like 18. I think he might have been 15 or 14 at the time. So he was
Yeah.
super young. And so we started the website, and it's still out there. You can go to it's dreamcastersrealm.tripod.com, and it's still up there today. And it looks really bad. And it was so funny because we use Microsoft Front Page to publish the website, and
Yeah.
I would get so mad at Graham because I would write a post, and the way it worked, it was weird. It's like you would almost download the whole website to your computer, make your changes, and then save it, and then re-upload it, and it would completely recompile like everything on the website. So any change you made would be uploaded that way. But there were
Mm.
times where Graham would have like downloaded an old version of the website, and he would make a post and then re-upload that after I had published something. So he would resave and completely take away the post that I had made.
All of your work.
And I would yell at him. I would get so mad at him. I'd be like, "You fucking idiot! What are you doing?" And so that would happen all the time. It was so funny, and that was before there was like a WordPress and other content management sites. Like PHP was before all of those type of things. And man, it was so funny seeing the way we did it. And then we decided like that's when Sega started going away with the Dreamcast. They announced that they were not going to be doing the Dreamcast anymore. I was so mad, man. I don't remember where I found out about it. It must have been on the Sega forums or something.
Mm.
And I was so pissed that they did that I went to the local GameStop and traded my Dreamcast in that day. I was so mad,
Oh.
and I immediately regretted doing that. Do you remember where you're at, or what you were doing when you found out that Sega was going to be discontinuing the Dreamcast?
Yeah, my uncle actually told me because he had a Dreamcast and I used to go over to his house and play it all the time. And yeah, I remember being violently upset because how old was I? I was that was 2000 and was it 2001 that they announced it?
Yeah, it was. I think like it was in 2001, and I think it was like the first quarter. I think it was like March or May, something like that, something around
Yeah,
there.
I was like 12 at the time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was like 12 at the time, but I remember being really upset about it because I thought he meant he was getting rid of his Dreamcast.
Oh
And I
man.
was like, well, I won't be able to play it anymore. It's really upsetting.
Yeah, I was man. I don't realize hearing your ages makes me realize like how old I'm getting. But um, I was so mad. So then we decided, okay, we still loved Sega. And it was kind of exciting at the same time because Sega's now saying like, all right, we're going to start publishing on all these other platforms. And at that time though, everyone was like, okay, even though Sega's getting out of the console business right now, they're still going to get back into it. So I had this like I think I wrote an article about it about like how Sega can get back into the
Yeah.
console business. And I was thinking like they could go out and kind of reestablish themselves on these other consoles and take their franchises all elsewhere, and they would be able to make new fans. Like they'd be able to convert Nintendo fans because now Sonic is going to be on Nintendo platforms, and these people that before they hated Sega, now they're going to be able to play Sega games, and now they'll be able to realize like how awesome Sonic and all these other games are. So Sega's going to go out, make a ton of money, making games for the Xbox, the PlayStation 2, and the GameCube, and then they'll be able to come back once they make their money and get back into the console business, and they'll be able to take everyone down because they'll have all these new fans. Of course, that didn't
Oh,
end up
yeah.
happening. So what we decided on doing was that's when we decided on making Sega Nerds because we decided let's kind of generalize everything, and we didn't feel like Dreamcasters Realm, with a name like Dreamcasters Realm, we'd be able to really kind of focus on what Sega was doing after that. So we kind of stopped working on Dreamcasters Realm. That's when we built up Sega Nerds. And the very first iteration, we were still using Front Page with
Oh God.
with, with Sega Nerds, and it looked so bad. Actually, I have to see if I could dig up some old images. My front page skills got pretty good to where I could make a uh, decent looking website, and uh, we try to model like other sites like IGN, just kind of how they did the 3 column layout or the 2 column
Yeah.
layout back then. We try to do that, and it worked fairly well, but it was just not a good method of a website. And then we finally found a um, a content management system, and I don't even think the first one was WordPress. There was like a couple different ones, and I can't even remember some of the names of them back then. But having a content management system, man, that was so awesome because it
Yeah.
made posting way easier. You didn't have to go in and download the website, do all that kind of other crazy stuff. It was
Sorry
it
to
was
interrupt, but I've actually found um the site from 96, 2006. Sorry.
Can you share it? Can you share your screen? Are you able to
Yes,
do
I
that?
can. Let me just. How do we do that again? I've completely forgotten.
Um, oh shoot. If you do screen share, it's the little green button on the left.
Screen share. Cool. All right, full screen. Whoa. Okay.
And then you
So,
should be able to click a window. Holy cow. Oh, you're at the Wayback Machine. Yeah, if you look there's some links that will give you like a better view of it, that you can actually see what it actually kind of looked like
try
back then.
2007. This is back when I was back in high school still.
Now, this will only I think go to when we first came out with our WordPress, like the very first WordPress site, because I think
Yeah.
everything was like deleted or something, and then we just kind of started over. So this was like what you'll see here is like our first iterations from WordPress, um, which was pretty cool. And that's
It's
when
not
the site
working
really
anymore.
started gaining. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa,
That's when
whoa.
the site really started gaining a lot of readers and things like that because there wasn't a lot of people out there that was just writing about Sega stuff. So we were kind of only the only website out there that was kind of doing that.
That was doing it.
Yeah. You remember the first
Yeah.
time you saw the website? Do you remember when you first
Oh yeah.
came across Sega Nerds?
Yeah, well, the thing is about Sega Nerds is I'd briefly passed over it every now and then because obviously I was somewhat active um in circles as Neo Akiba. Um, pretty much that's pretty much been my screen name as far back as I can remember. Um, and uh and I passed over the site every now and then, and I can remember very vaguely the old layout, but I only really know it from when I started contributing as a staff writer.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's crazy just to kind of. I love to kind of reminisce about the website because I mean, I know it's that kind of a dumb website just about video games and stuff, but it does. I mean, I do love it. There's just so
Yeah.
many memories that I have of running the website, of just making new friends. Like I love adding new writers to the website and becoming friends with them. Like Marson, he's probably one of our newest members that we have on the site, but I mean he's been so crucial of keeping up with the news and helping out on Facebook. I mean he pretty much him and Kopke run our social media, and I can't say enough about the great work that they do. Um, but it's awesome meeting new people, and I've met so many awesome people through the website, and a lot of them, man. I mean, because of my job, I move so much. I mean, every 2 or 3 years, I'm moving to a new place because I'm in the military. So I'm constantly having to pick up and go to a new place and make new friends and stuff. And honestly, I don't really like being around a lot of people. It's just kind of my personality, and in a lot of ways, I
Mm.
think I'm kind of an introvert. And so I much prefer just to have friends online where I could talk to and hang out with, and that I know have like-minded interests rather than trying to go out and find friends, in real
Yeah.
life, I guess. I just don't really care to do that so much. Um, but it's great meeting all the new people, and so from that respect, I mean, the website is something I really cherish and love a lot, and I find a lot of um, I get a lot out of just not only running it but just meeting all the kind of cool new people. Um, but I want to talk about, uh, I've been talking to you about trying to get a Neo Geo for a while. I think I brought it up to you a few
Yes.
weeks ago. Remember that?
Ooh, the Neo-Geo.
And so I go on Craigslist every probably 2 or 3 times a week, and just looking for Neo Geo, or I'll search Sega, seeing what Sega stuff's out there. I also look for Atari, like Jaguar stuff. I've been wanting to get a Jaguar. I look for 3DO stuff because that's what I like to collect still. Anytime I can find like a good 3DO collection, I'll try to buy that. I've noticed on eBay here lately, there hasn't been a lot of good 3DO uh, kind of um, big bundles of like 3DO games. It's either
Yeah,
kind
they
of
really have.
one-offs, or people will bundle like a bunch of shitty games with like one good game and try to sell for like $40. And no one wants to do that. No one wants to buy
No.
that crap. So anyway, a few weeks ago I found a Neo Geo, like I think it was a 2 or 3 slot Neo Geo MVS cabinet, but it was like $1,000. And at that point, I was starting to talk to the wife, and I was like, "Hey, I'd really love to get an MVS cabinet." And she's known that for a while. She almost bought me one for Christmas a while back, a 2 slot, but the guy
Oh.
just for whatever reason stopped replying to her on Craigslist. He might have sold it. Um, so we weren't able to get one, and then afterwards I ended up buying my hang-on cabinet, which I still love. I
Mm.
still play that quite a bit. Um, and so I started talking to her again. I'm like, hey, I really would like to get a new, Neo Geo cabinet. And so a couple of days ago, I found there was a guy selling one near me for, it was just a 1 slot cabinet, but he was selling for like $300. I'm like, oh man,
Hey.
I really, I really want to get that. So I've been talking to him. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. He has pictures of all the internals, so the boards look really good. He said the screen's perfect. The outside, there's a little damage to one of the sides. Not It's not big. I mean, you could repaint
Mm.
it and it'd probably be fine. Now, the only thing is, though, is that in this new house, we don't have as much room as we did in our old house. I had the basement. In the last two houses, I had this big basement where I could put everything, and I had tons of room, so I could have probably put 3 or 4 arcades in my
Yeah.
last basement, and I would have been fine. Well, in this new house, it's a we had to kind of condense everything. It's not as big. We have one like family area. We're downstairs. We have a couch and an entertainment center, and that's kind of where the games are. And my hang-on cabinet is over on the other side of the family room, kind of near where the laundry area is now.
Mm.
And there's like a little spot that's perfect for it. Um, I'm trying to, but there's not really another spot where I can put a another arcade cabinet. And so the wife was like, I keep trying to think of these ways, these kind of ways we can rearrange stuff and make room for it, and she's not really feeling any of my ideas. And so I think the only way I'm going to be able to convince her to get this, that I can get this MVS cabinet, is to get rid of my hang-on cabinet, which is kind of a bummer. I didn't want to do that, but I really, really want to get that MVS cabinet. And I found out that I didn't realize this, but have you seen that you can get a 161 in one cartridge for the MVS?
No,
Yeah, so it has 161 Neo Geo games on one cartridge. And
that's amazing.
so that was my one like concern, is like, okay, but if I get a one slot, it's gonna be a pain in the ass having to pull open pull open the joystick area, put a new card in every single time I want to play a new game.
Mm.
But if I got that 161 in one card, I could just put that in and I'd be set. Like there's all the
Yeah,
games that I want to play are on that one cartridge. And so I think that's where I might go with it. And you can get it for like $40 online. It's not really expensive. So
I think you should do that personally.
you think I should get rid of the hang on cabinet and go with that then?
As much as it would be sad to see the Hang On cabinet go, because Hang On's an awesome game, 161 and one.
I know. And I mean, the hang on cabinet has been, I loved it, but honestly, we don't play it as much as we used to, uh, and it's been having little issues where it freezes every once in a while.
Mm.
I've always wanted a Neo Geo, even as a kid, man. I remember the Neo Geo. That was like the holy grail of gaming back then, because you'd look at in magazines and you'd have like the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and then you would see screenshots of what could be done on the Neo Geo. And I remember
Yeah,
seeing screenshots of like I think it was it Samurai Showdown maybe I saw, and I was blown away at the pixel art in that game, like how
oh yeah,
detailed the characters looked. And I was like, God, I want one of these so bad. But back then, I mean, it was like thousands of dollars. There was just no way. And even the really rich kids that had all of the like the expensive systems that had like a 3DO and things like that, even they didn't have a Neo Geo. I didn't know anyone as a kid who owned a Neo Geo. Did you?
no, I didn't. Over here in the Neo Geo wasn't a thing. We didn't get it. And as far as I know, in England, it wasn't really a thing either. So we were in England. We were all about Sega. Like everyone had a Sega. Doesn't matter
That's
if it was
awesome.
a Master System or a Mega Drive. Everyone had a Sega. Get to Australia, when I moved here, everyone had Super Nintendo. It was weird.
Hmm.
Um, but it's funny that well, I found out Chris was actually looking at getting a cabinet, because I've been looking at getting a Neo Geo CD. That's the last console that I want for my collection. So I've been looking at it, and the games range from pretty. There's sort of the pretty cheap ones, which are like $20, and it's normally King of Fighters.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's others that are like $200, like Metal Slug, which
Holy crap.
surprises me because I thought Metal Slug would have been a really common game. Apparently, it
Hmm.
isn't.
Well, I know like
Um,
I know that all of the cartridge releases didn't get put on CD, so maybe it was just one of those that it was just, even though Metal Slug was a popular game for the Neo Geo, maybe they just didn't end up bringing a lot of making a lot of copies of the games. You have to think probably at that time when they made the Neo Geo CD, they probably weren't manufacturing as many units per game as they would have been for the AES,
yeah,
and so there's probably a lot less of them out there. But I noticed that, I mean, some of the Neo Geo CDs, they're not actually that expensive on eBay. I mean, you could get one. I think they go run for maybe like a little over $100 or $200, don't they?
well, I'm looking for one. in the box, which is going to run me about $240,
Mhm.
which isn't too bad considering. And I didn't know that there were two models. There's a front loading and a top loading model.
I know the CDZ. I don't know which one that one is, but apparently the CDZ has like loads faster because that was the biggest issue with the Neo Geo CD was the loading times,
Yeah.
and they're just very very long. So just know that before you going into it. But the CDZ loads considerably faster, probably about 2 times as faster as the regular CD model. So
Mm.
if you get one, I would go with the CDZ just because it's going to load a lot quicker.
Yeah, I'll make sure I do.
Yeah, I'll have to keep you updated on that. I definitely want to end up getting I definitely want to end up getting it. It's just a matter of if the guy still has it by this weekend or not, and then I have
Hope
to figure out how the hell I'm actually going to get it inside my house and all of that, which is brings up a whole new kind.
logistical problems.
Yeah. So, um, man, I realized it's almost Halloween. It's what October 26th.
It
We've
is.
got Halloween is on Saturday. That's
It's
crazy.
crazy, right? I'm
Um,
actually going to a wedding.
on
Uh,
Saturday.
yeah, so hang on, let me look at my Saturday. Yeah, the 31st. Yeah. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
going to a wedding on Saturday. So they're having a Halloween themed wedding.
So you guys are going to be dressing up and everything?
No, it's going to be themed that way. We have to still come in, smart casual attire.
Ah,
I was like, why not go the whole 9 yards and have everyone dress up? That'd be fantastic.
I dare you to go in a suit, but have like zombie makeup on.
Oh,
Or go
I'm
as a
gonna have.
vampire, which would maybe be a little less work. That would be
Yeah, I'll
fun.
take. What I'll do is I'll just have the teeth in, and I'll see if anyone notices the teeth.
That'd be
And
hilarious.
then
I
like
remember I that was like my go-to Halloween costume as a kid was Dracula.
Dracula.
And I'd always be Dracula every year. But there were a couple of times where it kind of backfired on me. I remember one year I went to a daycare where my mom was going to school um, to learn how to like I think she was like going to like beautician school or whatever it's called.
Mm,
And it was around Halloween. I must have been maybe about 6 years old. And I went as a vampire as Dracula,
yeah.
but my suit was like a black uh pajama suit. So it was like long sleeve and pants. It was one of those like just a full suit basically, but it was like
Yeah.
pajamas. But it was all black, so it worked for what I was doing.
Mm.
And it had a butt flap, the things that like kind of button in the back, and
Oh, the butt flap.
you could
Yeah.
open it up and go poop or pee. And I remember I was, and I don't know why I still remember this so vividly, but I was in daycare, and I think we were drawing or doing something, but I was standing up, and all of a sudden this girl behind me starts laughing and like calls my name and starts pointing at me, and all the other kids start laughing at me, and I turn around and I don't know why. Apparently, my butt flap came open, and I was just
Oh,
walking around, and my underwear was like showing, and man, that was like one of the most embarrassing moments of my life of
Chris, the
walking
guy
around
with the butt flap.
with my butt flap open. And I remember another time where I was being in Dracula again. I think I was a little older, so it may have been the following year or the year after. And somehow my mom got some sort of like a makeup kit, but it was this kit where you could draw on your eyeballs and make your eyes red. And she was trying to it was like a pencil um and she was like trying to draw my eye and like make it red, and
Well, yeah,
I just
go
remember
red
like
because you're irritating the eye.
yeah, it was the worst idea ever. She denies this like vehemently, like she will not admit to doing this, and she swears that it was like she was trying to put like eyeliner on me or something like that.
Yeah.
was screaming because it was so painful, and I was like crying about it. I'm like, stop it, leave me alone. And she finally quit and let me go. But she won't admit to trying to do that. So I have to go back and look, see if I can find something out there that there was some sort of old makeup kit like in the
Corroborate your
80s to
eyeballs.
it probably would have looked pretty cool if it would have worked. But the problem is, yeah, it hurt so bad that it was the worst. So what was um what was kind of your go-to? Did you celebrate Halloween a lot as a kid?
Yeah, we did Halloween in England. It was more a thing there than it was over here in Australia. So I used to be a ghost. I used to love being a ghost because I remember asking one year why I always liked being a ghost because a lot of my childhood is very hazy,
Hmm.
and apparently I said one year because I like to disappear so people can't see me.
Oh, that's so sad.
And it's like the most depressing thing to hear from a
I
child.
would cry if my son said something like that. That's sad.
I was like, I'm so sorry, mom. I'm so sorry you had to have a child like me.
Oh, man, that's a bummer, man.
Nah, that was
A
I
ghost
was
is a good
great.
one.
Love being a ghost.
Um, we were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one year. My grandma made the suit completely by hand. It was awesome.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, she was really into like sewing and stuff, so she would make costumes, and so she made us our own Ninja Turtle costume. I went as Donatello, and my brother went as Leonardo. Um, it's pretty awesome. She would get like I think she would get the kits. Like you'd go to a sewing store and buy a kit on like how to make a costume, and she would use
Yeah.
that. Um, but she would have to actually cut the fabric, do all that. It would just gave like an outline of way to do it and stuff, and that was pretty cool. Do you have like any kind of? I mean, I don't know. Like Halloween to me is my favorite time of year. I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
Christmas is right around there too, but I still think Halloween is my favorite, just because I have so many good memories of Halloween. Like, it was such a big deal in my neighborhood growing up that
Mm.
we'd go trick or treating. Obviously, there was just so many kids in the neighborhood, but down the road, like on my street, just maybe like a quarter of a mile away was a big park, and it's
Mm.
still there today. It's really awesome. But what they would have there every you sit on like hay bales, and you'd go through the woods, and it was like really creepy and it would scare you. And then you'd get off and they'd have drinks and candy, and like kids would be playing on the playgrounds. And so it was this thing where like we'd go trick or treating for a while. Then we'd go down do the hayride and go hang out with our friends. Our friends and our parents were always there, and it was just this amazing time in our childhood that we loved it. And I try to like recreate that with my kids as much as possible, but it just seems like
Mm.
today people aren't into Halloween as much back then, compared to any do you have any like rituals, I guess, that you like to do around Halloween, or things that you do leading up to Halloween, between like video games or movies or anything like that?
I like to marathon the Alien movies because over here on TV, they used to like I would be watching TV with my parents, and they used to put on, Alien, Jurassic Park, some of the bigger sort of um, not horror movies as such, but like monster kind of things. Because I mean, at its core, Jurassic Park was a monster movie. It was just the monsters were dinosaurs, and the same goes with Alien. The Alien movies are monster movies. They're just with aliens, and I marathon the Alien movies every. I try to do it every year. I think I've missed a couple of years, but I do that, and also the movie Dark City, which is one
Oh,
of my favorite movies. How good is it?
Dark City. That's the one with Jennifer Connelly in it, right?
It is, yeah. Jennifer Connelly, Kiefer Sutherland's in it as well.
Hmm. I watched it a couple years back. Not for the first time. I've seen it before.
Mm.
It was such a weird movie. Do you remember who directed that?
Oh God, no way.
Huh. It's such a crazy, crazy movie. I really like that movie. That's a good one. Yeah, me and my wife, we love Halloween. We love watching horror movies. So what we try to do, we try to watch as many horror movies as we can. We try
Mm,
to watch like a different horror movie every night if we can. It's tough with our schedules and kids and everything, so sometimes it doesn't happen. We checked out
yeah.
this one movie the other night. It just came out. It's called Bone Tomahawk, and it's not billed as a horror movie. It's a western actually. It
Ah,
has Kurt Russell stars in it. There's a lot of other actors. Matthew Fox from Lost is in it.
Matthew
Um,
Fox. Oh,
and it's really really good. It's essentially so it's a small town, and there are these. Kurt Russell's like the town sheriff, and
yeah.
there's these. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'll just set it up, but I won't provide any spoilers. And these guys, these kind of drifters, these outlaws, kind of come through town. They murder some people, and they stumble upon this weird like shrine or like burial site or something. You could
Mm,
tell it looks weird, and these crazy looking like cannibal Indians come out and kill them, kill one of
mm,
the guys, and one of the guy who's played by David Arquette gets away, runs into town, and they suspect that he has committed a crime, and they lock him up in jail,
mm,
and they end up shooting him in the leg, and they lock him up in jail, and the town doctor is like out drunk that day, so they have to get like the backup. She's like a nurse or something,
mm.
and they have to get her to come over and remove the bullet. And she's mending to her husband, who, oh man, I can't remember who he is. He's the he he plays the dad in. Oh man, let me while we're doing this, let me just it's really bothering me. I don't know this now.
IMDb it.
Yeah, I'm gonna IMDb it. So um, anyway, he had fallen off a the roof of their house and had broken his leg, so he's kind of hobbled. He can't get up and move a lot. So she leaves him to go and mend David Arquette, who's in jail and is sick from uh, just being out in the elements and his bullet wound. So she has to watch him throughout the day or
Yeah.
throughout the night and stay with him just to make sure he doesn't die because they want to they basically want to make him well enough so they can hang him. It's kind of crazy. Um,
Yeah.
and throughout the night, those Indians come back, and they don't show it, but they come back and abduct them. And so the next morning, they come into the jail, and everybody's gone. And but there's just these like arrows left in the walls, and they can tell. They get this Indian guy in town to look at them, and he tells them who it is. It's these things called troglodytes that are basically these
Uh,
cave dwelling Indians that are cannibals and are really crazy, and even the Indians don't kind of accept them,
mm,
and so they basically have to form a posse to go and save this lady who's her name's Samantha O'Dwyer. Patrick Wilson is who I was thinking of. That's her husband, Arthur O'Dwyer. He was in The Conjuring. He was the husband in The Conjuring. He was also in Insidious. Really good actor, and he has to end up going too. And it's him, Kurt Russell, uh, Patrick Wilson's character Timothy O'Dwyer, and Matthew Fox, who's this kind of this really kind of like rich, uppity businessman in town. And it was also man the who is it? Let me find his name.
it sounds like a good movie.
Richard Jenkins is in it, and he's been in a ton of movies. He was the dad in Step Brothers. You'll probably remember him from
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah.
He plays this guy called Chicory, who's a backup deputy sheriff. He's hilarious, and he plays so well. So anyway, they set off to go and rescue uh, Samantha O'Dwyer, who's played by Lily Simmons, and it was just really, really good. It's incredibly violent, and I won't go into any details, any spoilers. I don't want to do this. But the reason why I bring it up now is that the wife and I, once we started talking about it, it actually has a lot of horror elements in it. Even though it's a western, you could consider it a horror movie. There's probably one scene in it that is so horrific and
Yeah,
so violent that my wife couldn't even watch it. She had to turn away, and I've never seen her do that in any horror movie that we've watched. And we've watched the most violent of movies. She's never done it before, and it was amazing. So I definitely suggest Bone Tomahawk. Give it a try, especially if you like westerns,
definitely gonna give
if
it a
you like
try.
horror movies. Very, very good. It
Well,
just
I've been looking for a good western to watch as well, and it sounds like a neat twist on the traditional western.
it is. It is.
I was actually having that discussion with my partner about Terminator.
Hmm.
So the original Terminator always gets billed as like film noir or science fiction. I actually think that it plays better as a monster movie
That's interesting.
because he's not a person. He's the main antagonist, and he's like this horrible machine that you can't stop. And that's kind of scary to think about it. Like, what if he was coming after me? What would I do?
You know, it's funny. I don't know why, but I had this I would have a series of dreams, and it was probably when I was a late teenager, so I was probably about 17 years old, and I had a dream that I was like the kid, and the Terminator was after me, and it was the Arnold Schwarzenegger T-1000 Terminator.
Hmm.
Um, Wait, he was T-1000, right? Or he?
Yeah, T-1000.
Okay. Um, and I was so scared. I remember it was one of the most terrifying dreams of my life because there was nothing I could do. I could only run, and he would just like walk after me, and I just had this intense fear, and I would have those dreams, and so I could completely see how you might classify that as a horror movie because those dreams terrified me as a kid.
Oh yeah. No, I know what you mean. All
Do-
right. Are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, there's probably a lot more we could get into, but we've probably been on for a while. Um, so yeah, I mean, we just wanted to have kind of a chat about what we've been up to and some other things. So we'll like I said at the beginning of the show, we're gonna be changing some things up on the Nerdcast. It's not gonna be so much of like a weekly news recap that it has been. I think we're gonna transition that element to the newscast, and it's gonna be more of a YouTube show for that. So we're going to transition the Nerdcast to be something a little different, but we think it's going to be good. We really do. I think it's going to be a good evolution of the Nerdcast. It's going to allow us to do some more fun stuff and not be so news centric.
Yeah.
So we'll see what we do with that, but more to come on that. It's going to wrap up episode 92 of the Nerdcast. We will see you next week. Take it easy.